What up, Mike? Toronto. VK on the beat. Check. I'm in Toronto, where you wanna get the city love. I'm from Toronto, where you wanna get the city love. I'm in Toronto, like we wanna get the city love. My city love me back for my city love.
Welcome to episode 1385 of Toronto Mic'd. Proudly brought to you by Great Lakes Brewery, a fiercely independent craft brewery who believes in supporting communities, good times, and brewing amazing beer. Order online for free local home delivery in the GTA. Palma Pasta. Enjoy the taste of fresh, homemade Italian pasta and entrees from Palma Pasta in Mississauga and Oakville. RecycleMyElectronics.ca. Committing to our planet's future means properly recycling our electronics of the past. The Advantaged Investor Podcast from Raymond James, Canada. Valuable perspective for Canadian investors who want to remain knowledgeable, informed, and focused on long-term success. Season 5 of Yes, We Are Open, an award-winning podcast from Moneris, hosted by FOTM Al Grego and Ridley Funeral Home, pillars of the community since 1921. Today, making his Toronto Mic'd debut is OG Toronto Raptor Acie Earl. Welcome to Toronto Mic'd, OG Toronto Raptor Acie Earl.
How's it going, sir?
It's going well. May I call you Big Ace?
That's a blast from the past, but yeah, of course.
I got that from your book. I didn't realize what a prolific author you are. I mean, you just wrote a book about the 135, significant hip hop songs. I'll get the right title here. Hold on, I want to get the right title
most
here.
Most influential.
Right.
Most influential.
So 135 of the most influential rap and hip hop songs and why, and we're going to get into that. But how many books have you written?
Oh, I think I'm on 16 now. I just finished my Coach Earl's Rules of Basketball book for kids and parents. This is my latest. So I wrote 4 this year. So I got the bug, man. I sit and watch games and just write. I got the bug.
Watch out, Stephen King.
No, I doubt that.
What is your, again, we're going to get into the book because I'm a huge hip hop fan, and there's one hip hop band, if you will, that I want to get into it with you because it's my favorite of all time. And I had the pleasure of having somebody from this group on Toronto Mic'd. So we're going to get into the book, 135 of the most influential rap and hip hop songs and why. What is the process when you write a book? Like, is it, because when I read your book, because I read this one, and it's almost like we're in your brain, man. Like it's a stream of consciousness. Like it's almost like you write the way you talk, and I quite dig it.
Yes, I've had to work on that because it's like you assume the reader knows what I'm saying.
Right.
So like I'm writing it as I'm talking to one of my best friends, Hans, who was my college roommate. And as I'm writing it, I have to kind of like I'm talking to him and he's talking to me. So we're like going back and forth, like make sure you get this, make sure you get that. And without him, I would have never been able to write it because we grew up on hip hop. He's from New York, or he's from Vermont, but he's an avid New York. He lived in New York. He's the one who got me into that whole East Coast, like super hip hop. Like I was, being from the Midwest, like we loved everything, anything with a beat, anything that was new. So, like we got into the West Coast scene just as much as we got into the South scene or the, even the Michigan scene,
right.
With MC Breed, before Eminem. And so like him being from the East Coast, he didn't get into any of that, And so it was like we were educating each other every night. Like we'd stay up till 3-4 in the morning. We'd have 8 o'clock classes. And he just basically worked he worked at a bookstore, which got me into writing later and reading. And he would just save his money and buy music. And he'd buy music every Tuesday at the record store. And we'd just be debating if this is good, if it's not, who produced it, who's the DJ.
Right.
And yeah.
So Hans gets a co-writing credit on this one.
Yes. Yep. Hans. Yep.
Hans. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Now that's like a teaser because we're going to get into this. I can't wait to mix it up with you. 135 of the most influential rap and hip hop songs and why. But it's not every day I get an OG Toronto Raptor on the program. My friend, I recorded that first game to VHS. That was a big deal to me that Toronto had a NBA franchise.
One of my favorite games of all time.
Well, here, let me ask you about one game in particular, and then I'm going to pick your brain about that first season. But this is what I wrote. So on TorontoMike.com, I don't write books, but I write blog entries.
Mm-hmm.
The eve of the Raptors' first NBA championship, I wrote the following, and this is a direct quote. Win it for Acie Earl, who got me all excited when he dropped 40 points against the Celtics.
Yes, my old team in the new Garden.
You're the first Toronto Raptor to score 40 points in a game.
Yes, and Tracy Murray did not take to that very kindly.
Okay, well, we're going to get into Tracy. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and I think he got the record, I think I had 40 for a week and a half or something like that. And he broke my record.
And that was the tail end of the 1996 season, right? I think it was April 12 when you dropped the 40. Okay, so a lot of places I want to go. By the way, if people are curious, game one, Alvin Robertson scored 30. So he was the first Raptor to, I think he's the first Raptor to 10, 20, and 30. You're the first.
No, I was first Raptor to 10.
Okay.
So I believe I have 4 records, Raptor records. I'm the first Raptor to score double digits in a game, to get to 10. First Raptor to make a free throw. First Raptor to block a shot. And I think I was first Raptor to score grab 16 rebounds in a quarter or in a game, and then Marcus Camby beat it a week later. I have a couple records.
Okay, but that first Raptor to score 40, and I know you said that record didn't last for very long, but did you get that box score printed, and is it in a frame somewhere? I'd frame that box score.
Yeah, I did keep it for a long time. I think I did. I didn't frame it, but I did keep it and note it. And yeah, it was just weird. I looked up, it was like you're having one of those games, and I look up and it's 5 minutes to go in the second quarter, and I had 22 points. And I was just like, wow. And then all the rest of the guys were like, hey, this is your night. And that's one fun thing about the NBA is when it's your night, the guys are just going to keep feeding you, just feeding you. So
right.
they ran everything for me that night. And it was a great night.
But they have to like you to do that, right? You must have been.
Of course. So, we those first 2 years were it was like I remember we were just together with the OG Raptors reunion, and I remember Marcus Camby. We were talking, and he goes, "It was like an AAU team."
It was a bad team, but we are going to revisit. There's only a couple of highlights, really. That big opening day win, and then you guys you beat the Chicago Bulls.
Yeah, I mean, for what we had to go through, talking to Isaiah, I end up later on, I went back to get my master's and 2 master's degrees, and I started teaching at the university, and I taught sport and rec business for a while. Wow. So I got into the business of sports, and one of the things that I did not realize is the NBA made our salary cap under half of what every team was. And so Isaiah had to continue to tweak the roster by cutting and trading guys to get under the salary cap. And so, I mean, if we didn't have to trade and get under the salary cap, we were on pace to have the best record as an expansion franchise.
I had no idea. That sounds like the game is rigged. That doesn't sound fair.
Yeah, so I think Isaiah told me that year the salary cap was 30 million or 32 million, and our salary cap was 17 million. And I asked him why was the case, and he said because they were afraid the new teams would come in and outbid the other teams. And we were like, well, who cares? It's like if you were the Kings or somebody other team, you've had years to get it together. So why penalize the new teams if they want to spend money?
And we were already kind of behind the 8 ball because not every like a lot of players didn't want to play in Canada, right? Like
100%. Yeah, that was the other thing. For me, being from Iowa, I had a good relationship with BJ Armstrong.
Right.
And I was super psyched for him to be, to come in the draft. And I was like, oh, this is going to be great. And all the Iowa fans were all giddy about it. And I was like, and then I heard like BJ wasn't coming. And I was like, oh, man, because it was so much uncertainty. People didn't know if we were going to get paid in Canadian dollars, if we didn't know what the tax rates were.
Sure.
So agents were like super leery, like, I'm not sending my guys up there. Do the Nike deals, cross over because you're signed with Nike or Adidas,
right? But
not at Nike, Adidas in Canada, and it's like, it was so much, that a lot of guys didn't want to go.
I heard once Michael Jordan saying that his kid's favorite NBA player was BJ Armstrong.
Well, yeah, BJ had a great relationship with Mike. Michael told him, hey, in order for this to work, we're going to put you in the corner and be a shooter off that triangle. And BJ was probably the first modern player to hit the corner three. And he basically, for lack of a better term, he started the corner three, like making the corner three. And if you go back to one of the times they went to the White House, I can't remember, I think it was Bill Clinton. He asked Michael to make a shot. And Michael didn't want to do it. And he played BJ do it. And he said, BJ, go to the corner. And they passed him the ball, and he hit a corner three in the corner at the White House.
Amazing. And just, I did read this in the book, but remind everybody, like, how you came to know BJ at such a young age. Like high school, right? Now, go ahead.
Huh? I was recruited from, to go to Iowa, and he was a junior, sophomore when I was getting recruited. So I knew him and the other big, better players, Roy Marble and Eddie Horton, some of the other players that were there. So I knew BJ from very, young age in high school. And then when I went to college, obviously, and then playing with the Celtics, they're in our conference. So we played them 4 to 6 times a year. Right. So we had a very good relationship, and he'd come back and he'd do golf things, with us, and for the university, and came for football games, and he came to play and watch us play in the fall before he went. So we had a great relationship. So like I said, I was super psyched and hoping to go to Toronto with him and play, and it was like boom, at the drop of a dime, it just disappeared.
Oh, no. Tell me about it. Now, so let's talk about the Celtics leaving you unprotected in that expansion draft. Like, how did you feel when A, they left you unprotected, and then B, when the Raptors actually selected you?
Well, here's some little funny parts about it. So the last game of my Celtic year, my second year, we play in Miami, the Heat, and John Sally was there, played against him. And as I'm going out the door, Sally tells me, I'll see you in Toronto. And I said, what? He goes, oh, I'll see you in Toronto. So apparently he had been talking to Isaiah. Like Isaiah knew what he was going to kind of do. And he had been talking to players that he might get. And so Sally knew that. And Sally was kind of being the recruiter of Isaiah.
Interesting.
And so I had an inkling I could go to Toronto. And then, obviously, when they left me unprotected, nobody knew what was kind of going on. Agents were very mum about it. They didn't have a lot of insight. So yeah, it was kind of a slap in the face a little bit, being a first-round draft pick. But to their defense, each team could only protect 8 players, so 8 of the 12. So 4 players of each team were unprotected.
Right. Now. Yeah. Okay, so if you don't mind, I'm going to maybe ask you about your fellow day oneers with the Toronto Raptors in 1995. Oh, but before I do that, actually, so the Celtics leave you unprotected, and that's you got pride that might have hurt a little bit. Does that add to the 40 points you drop on them on April 12th, 1996?
Oh yeah. Because I looked around at that roster, and I said, a lot of those guys couldn't guard me in practice. So I don't think they can guard me in the game. So it was funny, like that night, I think 8 guys guarded me.
I'm glad you pointed out that you're the first Raptor to 10 points. I feel like that should be more widely known, but everybody just remembers Alvin Robertson dropping, I think it was.
One of the original Raptors. He's a great guy. He was a great locker room influence. Isaiah brought him in from Detroit. But more importantly, Isaiah knew this.
Yeah.
Alvin had somehow had a good relationship with Michael Jordan, and they had battles in Milwaukee, and Alvin was a great defender. So Isaiah brought him in specifically to guard Michael Jordan, and that's what he did.
Now, I have noticed as a big Toronto Raptor fan that they sort of have kind of semi-erased Alvin Robertson from the history of this franchise because of some difficulties he had in life. But in your experience, Alvin Robertson, good guy.
Yeah, Alvin Robertson would do anything for you, man. He would, he helped the young guys. He taught us how to work out. He taught us how to come early, stay late. I mean, Alvin was like a pro. Alvin was a pro. Alvin was in the NBA 12 years,
right.
maybe more before he came to Toronto. He came from that San Antonio, tree. He came from that Milwaukee tree with those. I mean, so, he knew how to play. He knew how to win. Obviously in Detroit, it kind of messed up a little bit. He had some injuries. And so, I mean, bringing him in was a smart move on Isaiah's part, for sure.
All right. So what was it like playing with Mighty Mouse himself, Damon Stoudemire?
Well, for a lot of us, we didn't see a lot of the Pac-12 games because we were East Coast,
right?
In Midwest. So you heard about this guy, this little guard, but, early on in those years before, he wasn't the best player. Right? It was those other guys that came from Arizona, like Gilbert Arenas and some of those other guys. And you're like, Mike Bibby, and you're like, okay, he wasn't the best player. So he kind of had to woo us over, to be honest with you. The only one who maybe really knew about him was Tracy Murray because he was a West Coast guy. But the rest of us didn't really know his game,
Yeah, right. Well, famously when he was drafted by the Raptors, Raptor fans booed it. They said no, we don't want Damon Stoudemire. So you're right. He was a big unknown here.
Right, and that's to Isaiah's credit because Isaiah was a small guard and Isaiah loved guard. Everywhere Isaiah went, even with New York, he brought in Marbury and Steve Francis. Isaiah's a guard guy, and so. Isaiah saw something in him that obviously nobody did.
Why didn't you start that first game?
Well, the rotation was pretty much set. Like Oliver Miller was our starting center. I think Tabak was the backup. And then I was fighting to be the third backup with a bunch of guys. And, some of the veteran guys like Sally and Massenberg and Sharon Wright, I think maybe, I don't know if Sharon had came there or not, but
yeah, he was there.
So the first game, our last exhibition game, people don't know, and this is why I got that opportunity, is we had a bench clearing brawl and those guys got suspended for a game. So I think Oliver got suspended. Maybe Sharon Wright got suspended. At least 2 or 3 guys got suspended. So everybody got kind of bumped up. So, I mean, I probably don't get those records if those guys don't get suspended. So, I tell guys all the time, stay ready, because you never know when your opportunity is going to be.
Right. You never know when opportunity is going to knock. You're full of mind blows today. You're the first Raptor to 10 points. I did not realize that. And I I didn't realize that all came together. So the starter, by the way, the starter in that first game was Jean Tabak.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, Tabak. It should have been Oliver Miller, but he was suspended.
Of course.
So I backed up Tabak, yeah.
All right, another guy I remember from those early teams here, and again, we're going to dive into that book very, very soon, but Doug Christie. Like, Doug Christie seemed to be kind of the glue of those early teams. What was it like playing with Doug?
Yeah, Doug came from Toronto. Came from New York. And so he came from in that whole Pat Riley, which was kind of like a mesmerizing thing. Like what do the Knicks do? Like, how do they operate? Like, how's Pat Riley? And how, so when he came, he was like all business. Like, he was taping for shoot arounds. He was working out early, working out late. And we were like, what's going on? And he was like, man, that's the Nick way. That's Pat Riley. So he brought in all that Pat Riley, New York professionalism. And so that kind of taught us a little bit more about, what the higher echelon is, of basketball. So that was great to be, to have that, with Doug Christie. And he was a pro, man. He was there. He was kind of in the same boat a little bit. He had been discarded by the Lakers. He felt being discarded by the Knicks, so he was there to get his career back on track. He wasn't here for any games.
Right. Who was your best friend on that OG Raptors team?
I wouldn't say I had a best friend. I was, there was about 5 of us that were really tight. Tracy, which I've known Tracy since I was 16. Playing AAU and playing basketball camps together. Tracy, Damon, Popeye Jones the next year, I think maybe. Me and Popeye knew each other since 18, 19, playing in the Olympic tryouts together. Carlos Rogers, Big O, Jimmy King, who played at Michigan.
I love those Michigan teams. I'll just say I was a big fan of the family.
So he was my rookie. So I took care of Jimmy. So he was my rookie. So, it was about, 4 or 5 of us were like really tight. It was like 4 or 5 of us that were kind of like the core guys.
Well, one of the names you mentioned, Oliver Miller, I always felt he was quite the character. What was it like
he was a character.
Being on the court with Oliver Miller?
He was a character. So one of the best stories I put in my 55 Best Earl story book is, he battled weight issues a lot of his career. And so one of the things, like, in order for him to eat healthy, is the team would have a fruit basket sent to his room on the road. And so he knew I ate fruit. I love fruit, right? And that's like my healthy snack. So he would pay me to come down, or he'd knock on the door. And it was funny because Hans was in New York one time. We're staying at like the Dumont Plaza or somewhere downtown, and Hans is there visiting me on it. And sure enough, the door knocks, and it's Oliver Miller with the fruit basket. So he gives me the fruit basket. My job is to eat the fruit. And then, so I gave Hans like a pear, and I said, no, you can't throw anything away. We got to save it because the trainer's going to come back to his room to see if there's any peels and cores.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Okay, I love it, man.
For a year and a half, I got a free fruit basket.
That sounds like heaven. I'm a big fruit junkie too. Like that's.
Oh, listen, that one in New York was the big one, right? With the nuts and the bananas and the coconut and the pineapple. Oh, it was funny, man.
Sounds amazing. What was it like when you beat the Bulls? Because they only how many? They didn't lose. I think they lost 9 games that season.
9 or 10.
9 or 10. Yeah.
We were built for that because people don't realize Brendan Malone was the assistant for Detroit. He's the one who wrote the Jordan rules. So like every day in practice, he would reference like something about the Bulls, something about Scottie Pippen, something about Phil Jackson, something about Jordan. And it's like we were subliminally beat over the head, like how we were going to beat the triangle. So like we knew how to beat the triangle. We just had to execute it. So it was like a relief because we did it, but it was like, it wasn't a surprise because like I'm a big X and O guy, when I coach. So the stuff he was saying made perfect sense. You know, he was like, hey, when Pippen catches it here, they're going to do this. When Kerr's here, he's going to the corner. When Jed Bushler's here, they're going to do this. And we just executed it. So it was like, if anybody was going to beat him, it was going to be us because of Brendan Malone. I mean, it was all Brendan Malone, to be honest.
We just lost Brendan, sadly.
Yeah. It's fun to see his son coach because he has the same mannerisms and the same fire that Brendan had, you know.
So when you do, you know, end up beating the Bulls, is that like that was like your NBA championship, I guess, back in 95-96 season?
Yeah, you know, and, you know, the other part about it is people don't know is, you know, Alvin and John Sally threw the party. And so that was the whole thing is, you know, can we get them out? And, you know, and so like, I think half the team was out because I think Tabak's job was to take Tony Kukoc out. So, you know, because they played with each other in the Olympic things. And so like, you know, so like I remember I walked into that party and it was unreal. You saw Rodman, you saw Pippen, you saw MJ, and it was like, wow. Apparently those guys were out till like 4 or 5 in the morning.
Oh, you know what, man? That's a wild little tidbit here. Keep them coming.
Oh,
man.
You didn't hear about the party, man. Like you got to talk to somebody about that party. That party was one of the most unbelievable parties I've ever been to.
That's unbelievable. I gotta get some more detail on that. So do you remember any of the Toronto-based media that was covering that first Raptors team?
The CA, what is it? CATV.
Oh, CTV.
Yeah, CTV. Yeah, I think CTV was the big one.
So do you remember, like, for example, you know, Rod Black was calling games or Leo Rowdens?
Yeah, Rod, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure, Rod. And, and we loved, you know, we didn't put it together at the time, but, you know, Mark Jones's brother.
Yeah, Paul.
Yeah, Paul. Yeah. So Paul was on the plane with us all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, he's still calling games. Absolutely.
I know.
With Eric Smith.
Yeah.
Amazing. Okay, so we're about to talk hip hop, but I do want to touch on your post NBA.
Whatever your time is, go ahead.
Your post NBA career, because I was unaware, but then of course before I talked to you, I did a little homework, and it's kind of wild. Like your career overseas, you played in France, you played in Australia.
8 years, 12 countries.
Yeah, Turkey. I could run them all down. Russia, Poland, Austria, Montenegro. You ended up coaching in Mexico. What was that like? And how do these, international leagues compare to the NBA?
Well, you know, for talent wise, it's not overall 1 to 12. It's not. There's no comparison. But the style of play and level of play is very, very good, especially at the EuroLeague level. And so, like, you know, when I was playing in most of those countries, you had 1 or 2 Americans playing on each team that had NBA experience. So, like, my first year in Turkey, I believe there were 12 or 15 guys that were on an NBA roster the year before. And that's not even including some of the European players. And so, my first year in Turkey, I played against 4 European guys that played in the NBA.
Wow. Mehmet
Turkcan, who played for Houston. Hideo Turkoglu, obviously, played for the Kings in Orlando. And Mehmet Okur, who played for Pistons. So I played against those guys, like, overseas. So it's like, you know, there's some players, like I said, 1 through 12, there is no, you know, comparison. But, you know, you had 1 or 2 guys on each team, on each league that could play or had played in the NBA, you know, for sure. So, I mean, I had a good run. I had 3 MVPs in 8 years. So I had
good for you. Okay, yeah. That was fascinating to read up on. By the way, lest we forget, Hideo Turkoglu and you have something in common. You're both former Raptors.
Did he play for the Raptors?
You know what? The best quote ever from him, because at some point he kind of quit on the team, and then they were in the post-game interview. They were asking him about a play or something, and he just said the word ball. Like, that's all he would say. It's like he was just like quiet quitting or something. But yeah, he did play for the Raptors.
Really?
We're trying to forget about it, but it did happen.
I would have lost that bet. Wow.
did you think back in 1995 when and by the way, condolences that you had to play in that dome. That's got to be a terrible environment to play basketball.
The dome, man.
Did you tell me?
The dome was great, man. The dome was great.
What did you like about it? Because it just seems so cavernous for a basketball game.
I love that it had so many people, and it was just it made it feel like we were on a stage. It made it feel like we were so important. And I remember the guys used to talk about that, like Alvin and John Sally, and some guys were like, "Hey, man, we got to put on a big show, and there's a lot of people here, and this is like their only time seeing us." So at home, man, like we kind of took that to heart. I mean, I liked it. I didn't really like playing. A couple of times, we played in where the Maple Leaf played.
Maple Leaf Gardens.
That? Yeah, a couple of times we played there. I didn't like that. That was, to me, more compact. I liked the Sky Dome. Maybe just because that was our first year, but I mean, I really liked it. Okay.
Well, yeah, I guess in 1999, I guess it was called the Air Canada Center, but now they call it the Scotiabank Arena.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So did you think did you dare dream that back in 1995 when, we had that strange salary cap and, we didn't have a great season because how could we? But did you think one day that franchise would win the NBA championship?
I would say a hard no. I would say we didn't even know if it was going to survive. What we were doing was a lot of us were trying to resurrect our career. And that was our only, goal. A lot of us were like, hey, we're outcast. If it don't work here, it ain't going to work, right? And we joke about the first week of training camp, Isaiah cut 2 guys and that were guaranteed maybe $8 or $9 million with 8 years on their contracts. So it was like it could be over really fast. And nobody wanted that. A lot of guys were like, no. So it was like you did anything you could do, right? And so it was like, even though you're out here playing and you're out here trying to build a franchise, you have no idea where it's going to go. We're just kind of streamlined to get our careers off the path. You know what I mean? So it was like, we don't even know if this franchise is going to be here next year, right? I mean, nobody knew how they were getting paid. The banking stuff wasn't even set up. People didn't know if you had to send your checks back home. I mean, people didn't have work visas still. People were filling out paperwork for that. I mean, it was like people had girlfriends and wives who still had to come up. They hadn't had any housing, anything set up. We all stayed in the Sky Dome. So it was like, championship is way far off than just trying to live. You know what I'm saying?
You were just trying to live. You were trying to survive.
How do you get your car? How do you get your car across the border? Does anybody have a car coming? How do we get a car? Do we license it there? Do we get a Canadian driver's license? How do we operate here? Yeah.
Wild. And of course, the Vancouver Grizzlies don't make it. So that could have been our fate, I suppose.
Could have been, yes. I mean, we're all this close from being a Vancouver Grizzly. You know what I mean? If it goes one way or the other, that was the other part of it. Is like the NBA made both teams draft from every team. So we went into camp with 22 guys. Each team had 22 guys with 12 roster spots. It wasn't that hard to figure out. 12 roster spots, 22 guys, guaranteed contracts. Somebody's not going to be here.
Wow. So in 2019, when the Raptors, make the NBA championship, do you feel any pride that you were there?
100%. I mean, the last 5 to 8 years have been very great for me as a former player. Being the Raptors had won it, the Boston Celtics success, the Milwaukee Bucks success, all my former teams. So it kind of gives my career some validation, right? Hey, I played for an NBA champion, So even though we didn't, we weren't as near as good as any of those teams when I played. But I mean, so I can say all three of my former teams in my adult life have won an NBA championship, which is great.
Amazing. I touched on your coaching career real quick, but the Tijuana Dragons, so what was it like managing the Tijuana Dragons?
Well, it's like, as I was playing overseas, I had tons of my former teammates and ex-teammates and players I played against all went into coaching. I was like one of the last guys to still play. And so a lot of my friends were like, hey, man, you got to get into coaching. You got to get into coaching. And so I tore my Achilles tendon in Croatia that last year, 2004. And so I was going to do high school to kind of get back in and see if I really wanted to do it. And nobody would hire me in high school. So I just started going like, okay, emailing semi-pro and pro and college guys. And so that was the first organization that hired me. So it was great because it taught me about organization and management and recruiting players, because we had to recruit players. So I kind of felt like Isaiah, like I'm recruiting guys to come down and play in Mexico. So I made sure, I had to make sure I had all this stuff. So people were asking me, where am I going to live? How am I going to get around? How do we get paid? Where do we eat? What do I need to get in the country? So I was doing all that for the players. And so, I had an owner that didn't really want to spend any money, so it was kind of hard. And I had a manager who really wanted to play, who never played before. So I had to save a roster spot for him. So it taught me a lot, and I was able to go and, coach in a couple other semi-pro leagues, coaching the CBA as well. So it got my coaching career started.
Okay, so here we are in 2023. It's been 50 years of hip hop, and you've been around for all 50 of those years. When did you first fall in love with hip hop? Do you remember the first song? Do you remember the first hip-hop song?
I probably had a couple moments. I don't know which one was first. I remember one time going back to my grandmother's house. They were from Hammond and Gary, Indiana. We were there in the summer, and we used to go out to the park and play, hoop and everything. And that was like the neighborhood place. And so, you'd see guys shooting dice and pitching pennies. And then you'd see guys break dancing, and somebody had a jam box. And I think the first song I may have heard was Curtis Blow the Brakes.
Yeah.
Or Basketball. One of those two.
Well, that would make sense if you heard Basketball, right?
They're playing basketball. We love that basketball. They're playing basketball. We love that basketball. They're playing basketball. We love that basketball. They're playing
Now rapping basketball, number one, Curtis Blow.
Basketball is my favorite sport. I like the way they dribble up and down the court, just like I'm looking on the microphone. So it's Dr. J and Moses Malone. I like slam dunks and taking it to the hoop. My favorite play is the alley oop. I like the pick and roll. I like the give and go, 'cause it's basketball. Mr. Curtis Blow. I used to go to dinner, then take the girl to see Tiny Fred against Earl the Pearl and Will, Big-O, and Jerry West play basketball at its very best. Basketball has always been my thing. I like Magic Bird and Bernard King. And number 33, my man Kareem is the center of my starting team.
TMLX 14 is Saturday. That's Saturday, December 9th from noon to 3 p.m. It's at Palma's Kitchen in Mississauga. We're going to drink Great Lakes beer. We're going to eat delicious Palma pasta. Al Grego, the host of Yes, We Are Open, the award-winning podcast from Maneras, will be there. Brad Jones from Ridley Funeral Home will be there. Cliff Hacking from EPRA. They're the good people behind recyclemyelectronics.ca. He'll be there. Chris Cooksey, the host of the Advantaged Investor podcast from Raymond James Canada. He won't be there? Boo. I just hope that you'll be there. I can't wait to see you. Cam Gordon has some tricks up his sleeve. We're going to have a great time. So carve out a little time between noon and 3 p.m. I'd carve out all 3 hours, but I'm not the boss of you. Come to Palma's Kitchen on December 9th for TMLX 14. See you there.
Yeah, so that was like the song, like basketball. And I was like, wow. And he's talking to all these players and whom all my dad used to talk about. So that was a defining moment, hearing the message.
Yeah.
Grandmaster Flash, the message, that was a defining moment. And I think not Rock the Bells, but Run DMC, It's Like That, you know, and in Crush Groove, which most of those songs I know to this day. I can lip sync all the words to this day. So like that was like the moment where I was like, this is like, man, like I want to do this. Like I want to like have a Kango and have a big gold chain and have a nice sweatsuit. And this is what I want to do. Like basketball was not there for me yet. I didn't know if I could play. I was good, but I wasn't that good. But I wanted to be a rapper like that day. That's what I wanted to do.
Well, you know, you don't have to choose, right? You can be both.
right, like Shaq.
Right, like Shaq. Now, okay, so on that note, did you have a sudden growth spurt? Like, I'll never know what it's like to be, what are you, 6'10"? What are you?
I'm 6'11". I was always tall. I was the tallest kid in kindergarten. Like my mom used to have the picture where you go to kindergarten and you have the vision and the hearing. Right. And you have all the kids lined up, and it was all these kids, and it was me right here. So I was always a tall kid. I did have a growth spurt, though. I had a growth spurt at my sophomore year in high school. I grew 6 inches. I started out at like 6'2", 6'3", and then by the end of my sophomore year, I was 6'8".
You know, I'm still waiting for my growth spurt, so maybe it'll come on any day now.
Yeah, man, just drink some milk.
Well, you know what they say, man. You can't teach height. So that was,
true.
I'm sure that seeing you after that growth spurt, particularly, everybody's trying to put a basketball in your hand, right?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I was by that time I was kind of good now by that time. So I started at sophomores, but I played varsity at the end of that year. So I played varsity as a sophomore. In the end, I was starting to be good. And I was starting to get like local recognition. I started getting invited to some summer camps, some exposure camps. So it was starting to kind of take place, right? Like basketball could be a thing. So like I was on my way.
But you wanted to be a rapper. Like, how was your flow? Like, how did you sound?
I mimicked, like, I wasn't good as LL. I was more like a Run DMC. Like, Run DMC was my favorite group until Wu-Tang. So, like, I was more of a Russell Simmons, Jam Master, or DMC type of guy. I aspired to rap as good as LL, but LL's vocabulary was, like, impeccable. So that's also started me to get into more, like, English and vocabulary because LL. So it was like, I mean, the bar was high. I mean, you had like Rakim and Big Daddy Kane, and then Chuck D with Public Enemy. So like, 85 to 88, like rap was really taking off, and it was like tons of guys coming out. Like that was the era of rap where all you had to do was come out with a single. You came out with a single, or it sold, record labels would record your album. So it was a single coming out all the time. Like the first guys who came out all had singles, like Big Daddy Kane, like Rakim, like Biz Markie, like all those guys had singles, nice and smooth.
Yeah.
Then the album came, Stetsasonic. I mean, you can go, for days on all these guys who just came out with singles. And that was the thing. It was a single, and the DJ would spin it and play it, and the record label would give an album. That's how the rap game started.
Why 135? Like, why not 150 or 100? Because you run down basically. You list.
So
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so me and Hans, we talked, like, I don't know, like, when you start to kind of research and stuff, and you're talking about rap and all that stuff starts coming up in your feed, right? So, I see the top 10 hip hop, top 10 of all time, top 10 of all this, top 10 East Coast, top 10 West Coast, top 10 modern. So then I'm talking to Hans, and he goes, yeah, man, that's hard to pick top 10. And I go, yeah, what if we did a book of all time? So we did all time. We got to 20. Then we got to like 50. And then as I'm talking to other people and we're bouncing it more, and he's texting me, we're texting back each other on this tech chain, we got to 7,500. So then I'm like, okay, but we're still missing some people. So I think I was going to go to 110. And then I got to like 125, and I had 5 or 10 people. I bounced it off of Hans. I said, Hans, give me these last people that could be in. So we went to 135. So we went to 135, and I think that was probably enough. I think if you go to 150, I think now you're just kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel. So yeah, I got to 135 because I think that everybody had something. There's a lot of guys that have something, not a lot of guys, a lot of people or groups, individuals that had something to give. And it's not a ranking. That's the thing. People are trying to go at me like, hey man, why do you have them at this number? No, it's impossible to rank.
Right.
It's impossible to rank, and it's impossible to pick their best, because their best to you is different than me.
Sure.
Right.
But what I noticed is, speaking of Hans, is that every once in a while you'll be honest with us, and you'll be like, you were on the fence with a song, but Hans wants it in there. Like and I happen to love this song, but Black Sheep's The Choice Is Yours. Like, I feel like Hans got that on the list.
Yeah. Hans is the one who put me on Black Sheep. I was not on Black Sheep early, and that was not one of the most popular songs that were played. That was the one that kind of, got it going. So that's why we put it in there, because that kind of got that whole movement going, right? And that's with Chi Ali, and I think another group that else was, in that whole. So, I mean, yeah, like I said, if I couldn't have done this without Hans,
right,
because he's the hip hop aficionado. Like, in the later years, since he kind of went underground, and I still kind of follow rap a lot, but the early hip hop, like all the Black Moon, like he got me on Black Moon. I wasn't on Buckshot Shorty. He got me on Helter Skelter, and all those guys. Like, he got me on Company Flow. He got me on a lot of groups that I would have never got on.
Wow. So the book is called 135 of the most influential rap and hip hop songs, and why. And I'm going to ask you about one band in particular that we both love. But why don't you tell everybody, how can they get a copy of this book? Like, how would you like
Amazon? Thank God for Amazon.
Okay, so Amazon and then you'll discover Acie Earl is the next Stephen King. He's got a whole bunch of books out there, but this.
I'm working on my spy book. I'm working on my overseas spy book.
Wow. Okay, I had no idea. I think we're going to educate a lot of people in the greater Toronto area today. Would you mind, and you go into great detail in your book, but can you tell us about Public Enemy and your love particularly for Flavor Flav, but you wore a clock around your neck.
Yeah, actually, BJ gave me that nickname of Flavor because I was like after Run DMC, like they kind of faded out. Then my next group was Public Enemy, and I love Chuck D, the stuff he was saying, and he was kind of educating us with the whole Black Power movement. And so like since I really love rap, I could always rap the song and give you the ad libs. And so I was always rapping the song and doing the Flavor Flav, like, yeah, boy. Like, and so BJ gave me the nickname Flavor.
Right. Cold, chilling in effect.
And then I used to always wear, like, I love a lot of like flashy colors. Like I love flashy colors. And so like, people like, man, you always wearing like, you're like flavored, like you just flavorful. So BJ gave me that name. I used to wear the clock. I used to have the license plates even on my car. So all my cars said Flavor 1, Flavor 2,
wow.
Flavor. Even some of my old college roommate or college friends and teammates still call me Flavor or Flav because of that. And so, yeah, Public Enemy was hard for me because to me, I liked Bring the Noise, and Rebel Without a Pause.
Yes.
Like those two, when I heard those two, I'm like, yes. Like, and when you heard that like on the street or people driving, it was like, yeah, like, you know what I mean? But I think for the movement and what it meant for rap, Fight the Power is the song, right? For the movement to put it on the national level. But I'll tell you where else you could have gone. You could have went to I'm coming back to Arizona. Like,
by the time I get to Arizona.
Oh yeah, by the time we get to Arizona, yeah, my bad. Yeah, so you could put that one because that brought that to the political, like, and everybody doesn't know what was going on in Arizona until that time, right?
Right.
And you could honestly say that song probably had an effect on what has gone on in Arizona to this day.
I could do a whole episode with you about Public Enemy. For my two favorite hip hop albums of all time are "It Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back" and "Fear of a Black Planet." And I'm with you. Like the song everybody goes to is "Fight the Power," but I would say that "It Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back" with things like "Night of the Living Bassheads," for example.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, you could have gone with that one because it put the whole crack pandemic up into everybody's face. Like people didn't know what crack was and how you did it and what was, you know what I'm saying? So I mean, I really loved. I remember the first album, which was the when I jump in my car, people treat me like Kareem
Abdul-Jabbar, no matter who you are when you're up to par. Sorry.
Yeah.
You'll bum rush the show.
So, right.
And also we didn't even mention Black Steel and the Hour of Chaos, which, might be my favorite Public Enemy song. So,
right. So it's a lot of stuff you could go with Public Enemy. I mean, they're just timeless, right? There's some groups that are timeless, and they're timeless.
Have you ever met Chuck D?
I think one time. Like that was one of the best things about playing in the NBA is like you saw rappers at games. Right. Like, I'm in my first away NBA game. I met CL Smooth from Pete Rock and CL Smooth.
Wow.
Which Hans put me on that.
Yeah.
Hans put me on them. And I was like, I almost couldn't wait to get home and call Hans. I was like, that's who, you would not believe who I just saw. CL Smooth. And I talked to him, and he was the coolest dude. But no, back to your original question. I don't know if I've met maybe Chuck one time.
Have you met Flav?
I met Flavor a couple times. I've seen a lot of guys, a lot of groups in person. Like the time I call back and tell them I saw Wu-Tang live, and that was like the craziest concert I've ever seen in my life. So my buddy RS Ray Dog, who's from Mighty RSO Posse from Boston, they used to wear all the gold and hockey stuff because they hated the Celtics. He ended up making the group called Made Men, and then his buddy was the guy who invented the Source, right? Dave Mays from Harvard. So he was from Boston, and he used to take me to all these shows. And so he called me up one like Tuesday night and Thursday night and said, "Hey, we're performing in Providence." I said, "With who?" He goes, "Black Sheep," which I have never heard of, Wu-Tang Clan, which I have not heard of, and maybe Helter Skelter, I don't know. And I said, "Fine, I'll go." So I'm like watching Wu-Tang, and they're doing like Method Man, and it's all 9 of them on stage doing Method Man.
Wow.
And I don't know who is who. So I call up Hans after this. I said, "Man, I don't know who this Wu-Tang is." He goes, "Yeah, man, I think their album comes out next week." I said, "Don't buy it, man. Don't
Wow.
buy it." I said, "Man, they got this one guy, like the old dirty something, and all he's doing is growling, running around. I think there may be one guy who was really good, like Method Man, maybe, who had some lyrics, but everybody else was just running around, jumping around, and screaming." And so he goes, "All right, good to know." So actually, my stepbrother got me on. I didn't listen to Wu-Tang when it came out. I come home for the summer. My stepbrother had Wu-Tang on every day. And I started listening to it. And I was like, okay, RZA's production is pristine. And then Hans got me on Ray and Ghost, Glaciers of Ice. He got the EP. He bought the cassette EP, Glaciers of Ice. That summer we were like riding in my car, and we banged that Glaciers of Ice. And like, oh my God, like, yo, stay on the block, we run, gun cock, avalanche rock, get paid off, mass murderer services, chef make 'em, watch the alley cat bake 'em. Like, and we listened to that every day. And then I became a Wu-Tang aficionado. So like, I have pretty much every Wu-Tang CD ever made, every spinoff. I have Sons of Man, Killer Army, Shaheem, the group that was from Virginia, I can't remember them guys. The group that was from LA, like I have the Venoms, I have the female, I have everything. So I'm a Wu-Tang aficionado.
It's too funny to hear that initial take of yours. That's called one of the great cold takes of all time, which is, yeah, don't buy this. Okay, that's hilarious here. Hey, you referenced something in your book, and I got to follow up on it. You mentioned that DJ Easy Rock and Rob Bass, they were commissioned to do some kind of a Raptor song?
Yeah, so our second year coming back in the summer, they got paid to come do some song for the Raptors. And so they flew a lot of us who wanted to do it. I think it was me, Tracy Murray, Carlos Rogers, and maybe one other guy, maybe Jimmy King. So they fly us back to Toronto to do this for one day. They paid us, and we rapped on this song with them. Like, I don't know if it ever came out or if it...
That's it, man. I didn't know about it. I read about it in...
Ask Elaine Kwan. If you have Elaine Kwan stuff on Instagram or your email, Elaine Kwan was the one who put it together. Okay. So she might have it somewhere.
Because I was searching YouTube, like, where is this and how do I not know about it? And I can't find it. So I'm going to have to do that. Because if there's a DJ Easy Rock and Rob Bass Raptor song from like 1996 with all you cats on it, I need to hear this.
Yeah. I was a feature on there.
I gotta dig this up. That's amazing. All right. What will be your next book? Oh, you mentioned you're already working on it, but you're prolific, man. What's your next book?
So the next book is me playing overseas. So like I've pretty much written every genre of book basketball-wise. So I've written how to play overseas. I've written how to create a college athlete. I've written books on like basketball drills. I've written. I've now gone on to my family history. We had a lot of passings in the past 3 or 4 years with my family. So a lot of our Earl stories. I'm the oldest of all the grandchildren and of my brothers. So I have a lot of Earl stories that were passed down. So I wanted to put them to paper. So they're somewhere for, our young, siblings and everybody to read. So I have 55 of the best Earl stories, then 55 more. So, and there's some of the other, some stories that also pertain to me in basketball, some of the funny things that's happened in my life. And so as I'm talking to other people, they're like, I'm not into basketball, not into sports. I'm not into real life stuff because it makes me emotional. I'm into like spy or thriller or, something that is not real. I want to be entertained. Can you write that? So I'm just thinking like, okay, what can I write? So like growing up, like my brother or all my brothers, but my dad was big James Bond guy. We used to watch all the James Bonds. And my dad was a big, like, mystery guy. They used to watch, he watched Barnaby Jones and Mannix and Spencer for Hire and Columbo and Kojak and Perry Mason. And so like all the mystery and cop movies. And so I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do myself as a spy as I'm playing overseas. So I'm playing basketball, but I'm a spy. I'm not really playing basketball. Playing basketball is my cover. So in each country, I have a secret mission.
I'm digging it. Yeah, you can probably license that. I'm thinking there was a TV show on in this country called Private Eyes, which was Jason Priestley playing a hockey player who became a detective. And I'm thinking your premise there would make for an interesting series.
I'm smuggling treasure back. So like in every country I went to, there's something that's really neat about the country. Like I played in Paris, and so in Paris I'm smuggling back some Knights of the Templar.
Wow.
Stuff. In China I'm smuggling back something from the Ming Dynasty. In Turkey, I'm doing something with like the King Sultan, like a King Sultan. So like every country I'm doing something that could be true, but obviously it's not true. So.
Okay, amazing. You're an OG Toronto Raptor, but let me ask you about a OG Raptor co-founder, David Strickland.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So tell me about your relationship with David Strickland, and then I need all the information you have on 13 Rules, Inc.
So this is a funny story. Okay, so like he was with, the ownership group, and, back then we didn't really see those guys a lot. They came around, and you have to understand, they were only 30-something years old. I mean, we were 20-something years old. So, for a lot of it kind of, especially the older guys, they're the same age as those guys. So it was like they kind of stayed away because they didn't want to kind of like seem that they were too young, right? Which they were kind of in a sense.
Right.
So, you saw them around, but you didn't really see them around. You didn't have a lot of interaction with them. So, Strick had like some TV roots and some soft drink roots, I think with some bottling companies. I think later on we got with Labatt's or Molson. I think he may have been instrumental in that. So I think he always had some vision to do a song with the Raptors, but it never came to, fruition. And so when we went for this last Toronto Raptor OG reunion, so Elaine, who was our PR lady and was a great person, Elaine Kwan's just the best. She had us doing all these interviews. And, we're at CATV, we're this, CTV here, this, and it's just, it's 5 minutes here, it's 2 minutes here, it's cut and dry. They're not letting us get into anything less than what they want to do. They have it all lined up. So it's me, Tracy, Jimmy, I think came a little bit. And so, we're trying to catch up with each other, but we can't because there's cameras around and we're laughing and joking. And then, okay, stop, we got to be serious. Then we got to go to the next place. So finally, when we're done, Elaine's like, hey, I need you guys to go over to this guy. He's doing a song. He wants you guys to do the chorus. So like we have done 4 of these now from 7 a.m. to 11 a.m. We didn't go to sleep the night before because we stayed up all night seeing each other. You know, Hans was with me as well. We're talking about the book till 4 a.m. So we go there and we're like, you know, the music's going, and then Dinaj is there, who was an ex-dancer, and then there's another Raptor gal who was there, who was an ex-Raptor gal. They're singers on this. So we're all catching up. Music's going. We're kind of unwinding now. We're kind of being ourselves. And they're just like, got the cameras going, and they're like, hey, do this. Say this. Say this. So we're saying it, and we're kind of like, you know, me being like the hip hop guy and like the creator, I'm like, 13 rules. I'm kind of saying it like Cash rules. I'm like 13 rules. You know, I'm kind of putting on like my Wu-Tang, part of it. So it's like the producers are like catching it, and they're like, yeah, like, and I'm starting to ad-lib it. Then Tracy's feeling it, Jimmy's feeling it. And we're like, yeah, we're going to do it this way. So we kind of flip it, and it becomes, it takes its life of its own. And so we just basically, you know, ad-libbed it, flipped it a little bit, made it a little bit more modern. And there we go, 13 rules.
In the winter of 1891, something had to be done.
We in the north.
One day I had an idea, and the first game of basketball began.
We sparked that fire, we started the game. We the north in our hearts before it had a name. Started the game.
13 rules. 13 rules. 13 rules. 13 rules.
Up north, we up now, we made the game, they love now. From a small place, El Monte, came a ball game that went buck wild. Who made the game? James Naismith, he made the rules the game came with. 13 rules, the arrangement that we played with before they changed it. 10 feet up, they lobbed the ball, at first they played with a soccer ball. He got a degree in philosophy and Hebrew when he moved to Montreal. Then he made a move to the States of school where he sparked the flame for the game we know. But the birthplace, no matter where it goes, is Canada, Ontario.
We sparked that fire, we started the game. We the north in our hearts before it had a name.
13 rules. 13 rules.
From the Huskies to the Raptors, we run things this accord. Trust me, no cap boy, we above rims, above backboards. We been on, we on it again, like Vince Carter with his arm on the rim. To all involved, show honor to them for bringing the team to Toronto to win. We giving our best, never come slack. Every year we on that, the message is clear like raw black. Raw black. Stoudemire with the starting 5, and all the guys when they all combined took us on the high, gave us our desire to spark the flame and start the
13 rules. I can't hear you. 13 rules. What y'all say? 13 rules. Say it again. Say it again. 13 rules.
Black or white or brown, it don't matter now. Living life together in our hometown. Celebrate the win like a champion in our mind and soul. That's the real goal.
13 rules. I can't hear you. 13 rules. What y'all say? 13 rules. Say it again. Say it again. 13 rules.
I guess it just goes to show what you can do if you have to.
Okay, and the origin of the term 13 rules, of course, is James Naismith, who invented basketball. That was his original 13 rules of basketball.
Yeah. So, you know, Naismith had a lot of ties to Toronto and, the Kansas tie in basketball, which I didn't know until, Strick was telling us about it. So it's his kind of tie-in with the whole Toronto and the whole franchise and the first game. And, it's got, the song has this, I think in today's music, and me and Hans talk about this in old school hip hop and music, like you had to have some elements to make a good song back then. Back then you had to have a catchy chorus. You had to have some scratches. You had to have deep bass line. You had to have drum kicks. You had to have something, to make it a sound, a sample. Like it's just like with that Public Enemy, remember Without a Pause, you hear that? Like with this song, this 13 Rules, he's got the beat, he's got the bass line, he's got the catchy chorus, he's got the singing, it's like that singing now, like you got to have somebody singing a little bit now, harmonizing, and he's got the rap part of it, and he's got the things in the rap, like he's got the Vince Carter with the hand, and he's got some elements of the song that you're like, yeah, this can work, this can work, this can work. So to me, it checks all the boxes. To me.
Okay, Wild. That's very interesting. The goal of 13 Rules Inc. is to bridge the gap between music, basketball, and cultures. So good on you for being part of that mandate.
Yeah, I mean, any part of music, with me, I love music. I love to take the culture anywhere you could take it, and shout out to Drake. I put him in the book. I struggled with Drake. And then I said, you know what? You got to put Drake in the book because he legitimized Canadian rap, And I'm old enough to remember Snow, right? I met Snow at a nightclub in Toronto one night. And nobody knew who he was. And I'm like, you're Snow. He's like, you know me? I'm like, yeah, man, I got your album.
Yeah, 12 inches of snow.
Yeah, 12 inches of snow. So I'm like, yeah, man. I said, I know you. Like, what are you doing now? He's like, I don't do anything. I'm like, man, you ever have a show? Let me know, man. I'm come watch you. We exchanged numbers. I never heard from him again.
Oh, well, listen, I could hook you up. I just talked to his manager about him coming on Toronto Mic'd and sitting in the basement here. So, big Snow fans here.
Yeah, I think I called Hans that night. I go, yo, man, guess who I saw? He goes, who? I said, Snow, man. He goes, really? I said, yeah.
By the way, you mentioned scratching. I just want to go put on the record now that maybe it's because I'm an old fart here, but I miss scratching in my hip hop. It seems to have gone away. You don't hear the ones and the twos anymore.
You see, Hans, when we used to go to, like I used to come to New York, Hans was big into the DJ scene. So like he would be like, hey man, we're gonna go see Stretch and Bombito. We're gonna go see who was another guy? Like Green Lantern. We're gonna go see. Like, I'm like, who? What are we doing? He's like, trust me, man. And you'd go there, and these guys would be scratching and playing, like, all the best stuff, man. Wow. Yeah.
All right, here's how we're going to close. Big Ace, bringing back that nickname, Big Ace. We're going to close with a couple of frank questions here. First is this. What did you think about the nickname Raptors? And be honest, I'm talking about in 1995. Like, it seemed like at the time I wrote actually on TorontoMic.com. I wrote somewhere. I guess I didn't even have Toronto.
I liked it because it had that Jurassic Park tie.
But that's what bothered me. I'll just be honest with you that it felt like it was a fad because Jurassic Park had just come out. It was huge. But I felt like we should have been the Huskies. But you liked it.
I liked it. Because I thought the Huskies was, in that Yukon, right? That's Yukon. Right.
Yeah, but that was the name of the original Toronto NBA franchise.
I know that. Yeah. But I was like, I'm a guy like you almost can't take another name. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I'm like, nah, I didn't want to do the Huskies because it's Yukon Huskies.
Gotcha. Yeah, gotcha. Now, one more question about the early Raptors teams. What did you think of the purple? I mean, there must have been,
loved it.
But there must have been many a Barney joke hurled your way.
It was like they said it was Barney on steroids or a mean Barney. But I love the purple and the magenta because me, I'm flavorful. That's me. So
right.
Like I love that purple and that magenta, and so that to me that was cool. I loved it.
Well, I loved this, Acie. This was amazing. Whereabouts are you, by the way, in the universe? Where are you right now?
Iowa City, Iowa. So, yeah, I coach junior high there and high school there. I do a lot of camps and training. That's my home base. I have some real estate interests there. So, yeah, back in Iowa. Yeah.
Well,
what was the song you were going to put on with the scratching? I was curious.
Oh no, I wasn't going to put on any specific song. Just
okay.
I miss it. Like I miss scratching in my hip hop.
Who's your DJ? Who's your favorite? Like that? Like I was telling you, Hans.
Oh,
like,
Terminator X.
Oh, okay. Yeah, remember Valley of the Jeep Beats?
Dude, yeah, 100%. Do you remember Juvenile Delinquents? School is boring, made for ignoring. Sometimes sitting in class, I'd be snoring.
Yes, listen. So like when we all had trucks, like that was the thing, right? In the 90s, you had the trucks, right? And you put the speakers. Like we would all put on like Valley of the Jeep Beats, and everybody would be blowing fuses, and you'd have to go to the gas station to get fuses because you'd be blowing your fuses. I absolutely have Valley of the Jeep Beats in my CD collection, and yeah, I bought anything related to Public Enemy. I was picking up at the time, so I was a huge fan. That was a big deal to me. And again, I actually had Chuck D on this program, and it was an absolute thrill. But Acie, this was a thrill. Good luck with the new book. Yes.
Next time you're in Toronto, let me know, man, and we'll meet up. And I
think Sasha's trying to hook up me presenting at the Juno Awards.
Amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah, let's definitely try to hook up for that. Yeah.
Absolutely. And again, everybody, the new book there is called 135 of the most influential rap and hip hop songs and why. I'll be digging up 13 rules. It's you, Tracy Murray, Jimmy King, and David Strickland. Can't wait to play it on this episode.
Yep. Denai sings a great R&B hook on it too. So I mean, like I said, it's got everything you need, I think, for a song to take off. So I'm hoping it does.
Remember, TMLX 14 is this coming Saturday. That's only a couple of days away. Much love to all who made this possible. That's Great Lakes Brewery, Palma Pasta, Raymond James Canada, Moneris, Recycle My Electronics, and Redley Funeral Home. See you all later today when Jim Shedden drops by to kick out the jams.